And tonight in a KREM 2 investigation, new information about private well testing out on the West Plains.
For the last month, the state of Washington has been testing hundreds of private wells for PFAS contamination. And just in the last 24 hours, I've learned more than half of them came back with potentially dangerous levels of contamination. So that is why one group of volunteers has been asking for more testing in a much bigger area. I recently went out to rural Airway Heights to talk with the head of the West Plains Water Coalition, who says the state and the feds need to do more.
It's beautiful, it's natural.
John Hancock has lived out on the West Plains for 16 years.
There's wildlife.
He says it's everything he and his wife and kids have always dreamed of.
There's good neighbors. There's, stars and sunshine.
But now you have some contaminated water.
We do.
It was 2017 when Fairchild Air Force Base announced the discovery of PFAS in the groundwater. Forever chemicals in the public and private drinking water for thousands of people in Airway Heights, Medical Lake, and beyond.
The Air Force is going to be in this.
At the time, I questioned then Base Commander Colonel Ryan Samuelson about how Fairchild would help people whose drinking water was no longer safe.
We're going to stick with these residents until we determine exactly what contamination, if any, from our activities occurred.
For people who live here and have lived here for many years, who are saying, we've been drinking this water now for decades. It's too late now because they've already had the contamination. So what do you say to those families?
Well, I'm not a health expert, I'll be honest with you. I know the Air Force, we look to the Center for Disease Control. We look to the EPA to establish those.
If your family had lived here for decades, would you be satisfied with these answers?
I'll tell you, if my family had lived here, I would be asking the same questions that you're asking me right now.
Now, 7 years later, the contamination remains, and the city of Airway Heights is still buying clean drinking water from the city of Spokane, which comes from a different aquifer. But for the thousands of homes on private wells, options are even more limited. Every orange dot you see on this map is a private well, and many haven't even been tested yet.
Gradually, more and more people were more and more concerned.
That concern is where the West Plains Water Coalition was born.
Since 2017, 400 and something homeowner wells, about a quarter of them have had high enough PFAS levels to get this filter system brought in by the Air Force. And those are the people west of Hayford Road. But east of Hayford Road, there was no admission of PFAS by anybody.
But the problem doesn't just end there. Just a few months ago, the Spokane International Airport also announced that it too has contaminated groundwater with PFAS. So it's the same problem as Fairchild, but now in a whole new location, affecting even more property owners on even more private wells. And the aquifer doesn't just sit under those two areas. About 300 feet below the surface is the aquifer. It's called the Grand Ronde Basalt, and it is constantly flowing. It's a formation millions of years old, and it makes up 65,000 square miles of water under the ground. So the question is, what about all the people who live here in the West Plains, but outside of those official contamination zones?
It's a very unique hydrogeology out there.
Nick Acklam is a section manager with the Toxics Cleanup Program at the Washington Department of Ecology. Just last month, the department started free well testing for more than 300 people in the priority testing zone. More than half came back with readings higher than what the EPA considers safe. Another 14% came back elevated, but still below the EPA standard. Only 30% came back as clean. Those with contamination will now start getting Culligan bottled water paid for by the state. And all of the data will then be sent to Eastern Washington University, where a geology team is mapping contamination hotspots and projecting underground water flow.
Immediate goal is to get people drinking safe water.
What about people who are not in Fairchild and not in this other contamination zone?
Unfortunately, we have to wait a little bit longer. What we're going to be doing is we're going to be getting that data. We're going to be creating heat maps, identifying where we're finding contamination. We'll be able to plug those results into the model that Eastern Washington is using, and we'll be able to determine, is there more areas of potential impact that we need to be looking at.
It has been a frustratingly slow process, which is why Hancock and his coalition of more than 40 volunteers is now pushing to get well testing paid for and available to anyone in the West Plains who worries their water could be contaminated. It's an effort that's now got the attention of the feds as well at the Environmental Protection Agency.
So EPA is saying it's not fair to to the community that those people in the Fairchild zone get help and these people over here don't.
The Coalition and Ecology are also asking the Washington Department of Health for grant money to at least get basic filtration systems in the kitchens of homeowners who haven't been tested yet or don't yet qualify.
You could look at the road and say, well, the wells on this side are clean and the wells on that side are not. But that's a totally artificial just boundary.
But as Hancock knows, the waiting for solutions isn't over yet. Do you feel sometimes that you have just kind of opened Pandora's box and the more you look, the more you find?
Yes. And it's hard to keep up with. In the ground, it just sticks around. It's rinsed, but it doesn't really go away. Even the word away, what does that mean?
He also questions when the cleanup process could begin at Fairchild or the Spokane Airport. As of today, it hasn't started yet. So it is estimated there are more than 1,400 private wells on the West Plains that could be contaminated.
Hancock not only wants the state to test them all, but he wants a comprehensive state map to show exactly where the PFAS contamination ends.
And as for Hancock's own well, he says it was tested clean by Fairchild, but he says he and his wife still filter it just in case. And if you would like more information on any of these stories, including the one we started covering this back in 2017, just go to our website, KREM.com.